while we are waiting for everyone to connect, please feel free to pop in the chat where you are joining us from. Of course, if you have any specific questions about the MBA concentrations, about the student life, and should you have any questions about the admission process, please feel free to pop those questions as well in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to take them after the presentation. Should any questions be specifically about the admission criteria, you will get an email with the recording, so and also all the information to get in touch with Syracuse after the event and to make the most out of the contact here with Shri. So without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to Shri. She's the PhD and Assistant Director for Graduate Recruitment at Syracuse. Shri, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Lavinia, thank you so much. It's yet another collaboration with Docsity and Whitman School of Management at Syracuse University. Always a pleasure to participate in these information sessions. Today, I have with me two of our recently graduated alumni, Anushree Jagdish, who graduated just last weekend, I should say, and also Titilayo Otukoya. As you can tell potentially from their names and also looking at them on screen from two different corners of the world who met at Whitman, and they are going to be speaking to us today about their own shared experience in the program. Both of them graduated with an MBA. But before we can get to them, I wanted to share my screen and walk you through a little bit of what the Whitman School is all about, what Syracuse University is all about, show you a little bit of our campus, and then take you through structure of the different programs that are available at Whitman, and then bring it to focus on what the students can share about their own experiences at Whitman. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so this is our topic today for unpacking the Whitman MBA journey, and I figured we could start with a little bit about location and how to choose the right program, and then ask these specific questions of the two panelists here today. So with location, this is a little glimpse of our world. What's not to like? So this is a beautiful campus in upstate New York. We are not located in New York City. Sometimes that's one of the questions that students have. So we are not located in New York City, but we are in what is referred to as upstate New York or central New York, away from New York City, about 4.5, 5 hours drive. We are pretty close to the Canadian border from the other side. If you look at it from Niagara Falls, we're about 2.5 hour drive away from Niagara Falls. But this is the campus. You see the pictures here on this left main picture is like during a sunny, summery day. And then of course, you can also see what it's like when we have snow on the ground. And then moving on. And here is Otto, who is our mascot, who was there at graduation last weekend. And these two young women were wearing some similar hats like this for graduation as they went through the culmination of their MBA journey. And it's in the same space where we have our games that we also held our commencement and convocation activities. So you get to see a full range of activities when you are at Syracuse, and you get to experience both campus life as well as activities which are specific to Whitman. So this is a little bit about the Whitman School of Management. This building that you see on the right over here, this is what our building looks like from the outside. It's a very modern building. We moved into this building, I want to say, in 2005, and we are still going strong in there. And the inside, these banners that you see hanging here, these represent our values, our mission values. And this is the 16th collegiate school to be accredited by the AACSB, which is important when you are looking for a program that is accredited. And one of the best things about Whitman, I should say, is that there is the opportunity to engage in the resources of a large university and the multicultural, multinational flavor that that would bring, alongside having small class sizes. And my two alumni here can speak more about their personal experiences with that in mind, with that context. But just a quick overview. In building, we have classrooms and also team rooms for grad students to engage in and use for their various meetings and collaborations. It's overall a very student-focused environment. So moving on, why do I have this slide here? Because I wanted to introduce not just the MBA program at Whitman, but also the other specialized master's program offerings. So specialized master's programs, just very quickly, are offered as specialized concentrations of study, which are of shorter duration, and they are with in-depth focus in one particular specialization area, for example, marketing or finance or business analytics. You would have intense coursework and a structured curriculum with fewer electives. For instance, our MS Finance program is only about 30 credits as compared to the MBA, which would be longer, right? There is an internship option that could be allowed after a year of study. Work experience is not really required to come into the specialized master's programs. Having a year or two does not, exclude you from coming into the program. It's an ideal option if you want to enter the market sooner after graduation. But by the same token, what's the advantage of the MBA then? It's based on duration of studies based on the type of program. At Whitman, the program is primarily the full-time MBA, and that's the program that these two panelists today will talk about because their experience is with the full-time MBA. Definitely has a broader focus that addresses all aspects of management, allows you to also specialize in one particular area. At Whitman, we do allow dual concentrations or specializations. Internships are typically recommended during our summer months, and that's another thing that our alumni are going to talk about today. 2 years of work experience is typically recommended to come into an MBA program, specifically because it gives you that experience in the real world, which helps you recognize what your strengths and shortcomings might be, and also gives you a clearer idea of why you want to enter or embark into an advanced program based on what you have experienced in the business world. It also helps provide clarity in whether you want to pursue that for a career or you want to change your direction, right? So at least a couple of years of work experience outside of the classroom in a real world environment before you come back into the classroom and then take it forward. Of course, my panelists today had more than 2 years of work experience each when they came into the program. And I think that will help you see why it was important when they actually embarked in the program and how they used that experience while they were in the program. So an MBA is utilized for different purposes, right? So it's ideal for preparing for a career in general business or in the particular area of specialization that you choose. People sometimes come into the MBA in order to pivot careers, and it's very important for that because you are then able to demonstrate your experience from in a previous role, how you can apply that towards the new role in a business field, but you don't have the academic credentials that will help you climb the ladder. And so an MBA would be very important in that situation as well. Okay, so with that context being set, I want to introduce the specializations that we offer at Whitman. So we do offer professional accounting, business analytics, entrepreneurship, finance, marketing management, real estate, and supply chain management. There are some asterisks that you see. These are donating the STEM designated specializations. And it also lets you see whether it's an MS and MBA. So it's not like it's a dual degree. It's basically to differentiate and state that for instance, real estate is offered as a specialization only within the MBA, whereas the other specializations are offered both for MS degree programs, standalone specialization, or within the MBA. So you could either do the shorter program or you could do the longer MBA program. So the full-time MBA is a 2-year program with total 54 credits. 36 are core credits, so irrespective of the specialization that a candidate chooses, they would all go through the same 36 core credits. And then you have 18 specialization credits. To complete these 18 specialization credits, you can choose from one of these specializations, or in some cases, you could choose dual specialization. Sometimes students take 9 credits from other graduate programs across Syracuse University in combination with the MBA specialization. So for example, you could choose 1 specialization in finance and add about 9 credits from other programs on campus. And therefore you would have primarily just 1 specialization within the MBA, but then your other elective credits would be complemented by courses that you take at other schools on campus. International opportunities, I've listed a couple here. We could go into detail if there are questions around it, but primarily there is an internship opportunity to be pursued in Singapore with US multinational companies. A professor at Whitman leads this program opportunity. The residencies is something that we've begun to offer recently in collaboration with our online MBA cohort. So that allows you to participate in certain week-long exposure visits, if you will, to a location, whether it's in one of the domestic cities or international. Of course, prior to the pandemic, everything was different, but now after the pandemic, we're slowly ramping up the in-person visits. But it is possible to go to a location, work with a company, work as in like meet with companies in the particular location, and then you will also have a faculty member traveling with you at the time. So it would be a combination of having a seminar or conference style meetings, and then also meetings with the companies. So, okay, so I think that brings me to my 2 panelists here. So Titi Layu and Anushri. So I'm just going to go with Titi because that's her nickname. So I have a little structure here, and I thought what we could do is maybe start with Titi and begin with a little bit about your background, and then why did you choose to pursue an MBA?
Thank you, Shri. So first, to kind of like give you context, right? I did my bachelor's in international law, so it's nothing business related whatsoever. And this was in Nigeria, right? So the first I started being, I was an expansions manager for ISEC. I worked in agri-tech as a partnership manager. I did some consulting for high net worth individuals. And then eventually I was a marketing manager for a startup. And if there's anyone that is in Nigeria on this webinar right now, you know that the investment space for startups is totally unique from how it is in the US. And so, I was doing some research trying to solve a problem because I hit a roadblock, right? And, I stumbled upon this MBA lecture, and, I'm fascinated by the MBA. Years of experience as a marketing manager, but you still find something new. So, it's been really interesting. I could go ahead and tell you about how I decided to pursue an MBA, or I could keep going into my background if you want.
Well, let's hold that thought, because let's see how that matches with Anushri's experience. So why did you choose to pursue an MBA, and what was your background?
Thanks, Shri. Glad to be here and talk to everyone about my experience. So I am originally from Mumbai, India, and before I joined the MBA, I had 3 years of work experience in advertising. Realized I wanted to enhance my leadership skills and take on more challenging leadership roles. decided to go out, look for an MBA, and the Whitman program really stood out for me, especially because of some of the reasons that she already mentioned, especially with the smaller class size, a very super focused class. So that's one of the reasons why the MBA program at Whitman stood out for me. I wanted to learn a lot more about marketing and communication strategies, expand my knowledge in a broader business context, especially in an international setting. And that's why I was here at Syracuse.
Okay, great. So that brings us like into a nice little segue, right? So back to you, TT, because Anushree here was in advertising and did specialize in marketing. You were a marketing manager, but you went into a different direction after you came into the program. So let's talk about that.
It's quite interesting actually, because while like you're in a space, you think you're good at what you do, you're good at what you do, but there's a whole new world out there. And so I was thinking, I need to expand my knowledge. Should I do a master's? Should I do my master's in law just to see what that space will be like? It seemed like a good opportunity. It was COVID time, like anything was possible. Life is short, right? And so I was just doing research. Should I do public communication? Should I do an MBA? And so I'm checking Syracuse out, the Newhouse School, and I go to the MBA page and I look at the concentration. I'm seeing a data analytics, marketing management, and I'm fascinated. I'm like, wow, like this is what I want. And then I send an inquiry and she reaches out to me and gives me a lot of information. And for me, that just sealed the deal. Like, I think I'm interested in Syracuse. But, I remember sitting down in Shree's office one time saying, Shree, I want to do marketing management with so much conviction, right? And I wanted to do data analytics as well. And, first semester down the line, I'm in a class and we're taking managerial finance. And, something just changed. Like the information I got just kindled my desire, my love for finance. And I'll give you some background. So my family, my sister is a chartered accountant, really good. And she's a finance guru, if you would say that. And every time she would talk to me about like the basic thing, maybe investment, I'll be bored out of my mind. And so this is me in an MBA class, smiling, I'm sitting in front, I'm so happy. And, the professor is looking at me thinking, wow. And all I could think about was I could see my future in finance. And so one of the things that I take back from the MBA program is how much knowledge and understanding could really open your mindset. You become a problem solver, right? So that's my path from just the Whitman experience to choosing my specialization, which eventually was a marketing management and finance. So you can do both. That was my experience.
Great. So Anushree, what stood out for you? Any particular course?
Absolutely. So I also did a double concentration in marketing and supply chain. So I had one favorite course from each of these specializations. In marketing, what really I loved was the marketing research class by Professor Ramya Basu. I was always drawn towards statistics and numbers, and combining that with marketing was really interesting for me personally. He took us through the entire process of how a market research starts to how do you analyze it and what insights can be drawn from those analysis. So that really was a fun class for me personally. Absolutely enjoyed it. And a lot of that was, I saw a lot of that in my internship experience, which we'll eventually come to. And the second one was the Lean Six Sigma course, where I was actually doing a live project with a company to improve their processes. This was a supply chain course particularly, and absolutely loved the fact that I was able to get hands-on experience on how a supply chain process works through, how do you improve processes, and a lot of these tools and techniques that you would learn in class, you were actually able to use it at every phase of the project. And we had a great experience. We actually saved real money for the client that we were working with. We almost saved approximately $4,000, yes. And it was fantastic. Absolutely enjoyed working in the team with the groups that I was.
Excellent. So that actually brings us back to, touching upon one of the USPs of the Whitman MBA, which happens to be that the whole idea of the curriculum is structured around the fact that whatever you're learning in your classes, you should be able to apply in real time to real-time business challenges, as opposed to waiting for 2 years until you graduate and then potentially hoping for an opportunity to apply it when you are, in your work setting. Not that that would never happen, but then the experiential learning component allows you to get into coursework like you did. For example, the Lean Six Sigma, wherein professors bring in companies, local businesses into the classroom for you to address the specific problems that they are encountering. And then you work in teams and you sort of go through that whole problem-solving process. So let's backtrack a little bit, TT, specifically with you. Talk to us about the coursework. Like in all your classes, I'm assuming you're doing it in groups. So there is group work, there's collaboration, then there are students from different. There's a whole international experience happening in that space. So talk to us about your experience with that and how it was different from your experience back home.
That's a good one. So I have experience in the startup space. So, but I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I mean, I could consult for startups and give them feedback on marketing and sales strategy. But there was this course, entrepreneurship class that we took in our second year, first semester. And, we had to come up with a product and do the pitch, go from the design stage, ideation stage, and then, create a prototype. And, I'm sitting down with my team in a small room, trying to come up with 3 different ideas. I think we had to come up with 5 or 6 and then narrow them down. It was one of the most fascinating things we did. In fact, by the end of the class, we printed a 3D model of what we were going to have. We did a mock-up of what it was going to look like on your phone. And I was like, I could be an entrepreneur. Now, one of the things that I learned from the MBA is like, you could pretty much do anything. Like when you're fed with knowledge, like you sit down with your team and you're coming up with things, you're talking about it, you're writing pitches, we're making presentations, and you kind of just learn like, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be a finance manager, you could be a research analyst. Like you see so many possibilities. And this is because the team, each person has something to bring to the table, and you're learning each person's strength and you are complementing the weaknesses. So one of the things I learned from that course, which, you could be expressive, however strategic you want to be, you're still expressive. So the teamwork allows you to learn about yourself, about your strength, I know the areas where you need to do some more work, but also you learn to empathize with consumers. You learn to sit like a manager, understand, like there's so many things you learn in each class. And for me, what stood out was the entrepreneurship class.
Okay, great. So that's a little bit of, you touched upon a lot of things, but then one little thing that you probably didn't go into too much detail is like handling personalities, because you're meeting with different people. So do you want to elaborate on that?
Okay. Yeah, sure. There was another entrepreneurship class. So one was an ideation, right? And this second one wasn't about implementing different strategies in the marketing, human resource, finance, and supply chain part of it. And I'll tell you, for one, I do not like supply chain. I could do something about it, but I'm not an expert like Anushree, right? And so we had to split different things. So I'm better with maybe finance and marketing strategy, right? And so each person had to take where they were good at. And now, so the thing is, when you're talking to someone that's always technical, like a finance person or a supply chain person, you have to communicate. I think like a content writer, I like storytelling. And so trying to convey my ideas to someone with a whole different personality, you're going to have frictions. So one of the things I learned in dealing with different personality is taking information, however large it is, and then making it suitable for your audience you're feeding it to. That is your team member. And even if you have to change your personality a little, because I'm more introverted, and she says it every time, right? I have to come out of my shell every time when I'm trying to, because I'm not just presenting to the whole class. Eventually, I have to convince my teammates, this is a good idea, we should go ahead. And if I can't do that, though I have a different personality, we are not going to be successful. So that really drilled me, changing my personality, understanding different people. doing the MBA? I hope I went into it a bit more detail, Shri.
I think it's important to address this because it's usually, you know, when we do webinars, when we do information sessions, it's very easy to say you'll have an international experience, you will meet people from different countries. But along with that comes different ways of learning, different experiences that have enriched your own learning from your own home countries and your own educational spaces, right? Because how technical content is taught is very different from how creative content is taught. So there are a lot of differences which usually are taken for granted, not addressed, but it could lead to miscommunication, it could lead to misunderstanding, it could lead to conflicts. And so when you are in a program that is as diverse as the Whitman MBA, conflict resolution is something that you naturally learn, but not because you just want to give way to have someone else take the floor. It's more of how you are learning to negotiate the space, right? And that's what I think through your example, you have defined how you learned to come out of your shell, yes, and negotiate that space while you are also holding your own, speaking about your particular strengths that you're bringing to that particular project in mind. Now, Anushree is going to turn that around and speak about how she handled that in her role in various leadership positions, because I know you did quite a bit outside the classroom. And so let's bring that into play here. So talk a little bit about the different student clubs and various activities that you were part of, and then also tie it in with the type of collaborations you embarked in and what worked, what didn't work, what did you learn? So go ahead.
Absolutely. So one of the things like I mentioned earlier, was to enhance my leadership skills, which is why I joined the MBA program. It requires a lot of personal development, like TT went through. I went through a different personal development myself, and it was a holistic approach to the entire program, right? So as I realized that when I had to take on leadership roles, I had to be more confident. I had to find opportunities myself to, bring myself out there. I started with the Whitman Women in Business Club, where I joined as the VP of Communications for them. So I was more on the back end, not really putting myself out there yet. But that was a step for me to start interacting with a lot of students in the Whitman programs that included the specialized MS programs as well. I was able to connect with students from finance, marketing, business analytics, accounting, entrepreneurship, etc. So all of us came together to promote the club, to hire more or recruit more students for the club, etc. Host fun events for the students in Whitman and across the university as well with certain career panels, associations with the Women in Business organization locally in Syracuse as well. And while I was doing that, I reached out to the WGSO, which was the Whitman Graduate Student Organization, which did events on a much larger scale as compared to the Whitman Women in Business. So these are only the two clubs that you have for graduate students specifically, but Whitman also has other clubs like the Syracuse Attendees that allows you to join a more general group of members. This is a mixed club of undergrads and grads, so I was also part of that. But as I reached out to the WGSO, I realized that I wanted to be able to step up to positions and lead that team as well. And I put in my application for the president and got it. So I was pretty happy about that. And I hosted the International Day event, which was more like an ice-breaking session for the grad students, welcoming new students from fall 22. So it was an experience working with the staff and the faculty within Whitman as well to organize such events, because all of them look for opportunities to promote inclusivity, to promote diversity, which are also one of the values of Whitman. And you can see it through everything that Whitman does, including the staff, with the students and so on. And yeah, I've had a lot of out of the classroom experiences. I also had the opportunity to take part in a case competition hosted by University of Buffalo, and successfully won the competition. Our group secured the first place in that particular supply chain competition, and we were pretty happy with it. We had a lot of support from the faculty, Professor Penfield specifically, who is a great supply chain professor. In case you have a chance, anyone who's going to be joining Syracuse and has a chance to take his courses, please do that. He's amazing. Breaks down complex supply chain, concepts into smaller pieces and makes it very simple for you to understand and retain. So yeah, that's been my experience in terms of in class and outside class.
Okay, great. So let's move on to, you've done a lot in terms of coursework with your particular specializations. You've also got stuff which is not related specifically to textbooks, because you learned life lessons, you learned your own personal development without necessarily knowing you're getting a grade in it, right? And you embarked on all of that, and then you took all of that after your first year towards your internship experience. So Titi, let's start with you again, with your internship experience. How did you go about securing your internship? What were the searches? What were the resources you used? And then I'm not going to say it, but you tell us where you went.
Okay, so I like to talk about this part. I think it's quite exciting. So from the first thing that Whitman did for me was to give me feedback on my resume. And I'll tell you, from the first time I decided to join Whitman till now, I've probably tweaked my resume over 10 times. When she told me this in 2021, I do my resume every time. I thought it was like, I keep looking at my resume. So one of the things like you learn is how to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, which was just the first step. I like to point out that you're going to have many companies coming to Whitman, coming to Syracuse. So one of the things I did as an international student was, my mindset is, how do I understand what employers in the US are looking for that is different from where I'm coming from? And so there was a time I actually stumbled upon a meeting in KPMG. They were meeting with their present interns, and they let me stay. And I stayed there and I learned what employers in the finance industry were looking for in candidates. Now I went back home, I tweaked my CV, I did more research. And so, this is the second semester, and we're taking managerial finance class. And so I'm doing research on different finance companies. I looked at BlackRock and multiple other companies. And, we use Handshake. So Handshake is just like LinkedIn jobs. So you get to see many jobs that are, some are even tailored to your school. And so I got a message, from a generic message from a recruiter from Goldman Sachs. And so I go online and, I look through the job description, and it was in wealth management. And, one of the things I knew I wanted to do was to have a more personable experience in finance, because I felt I was going to thrive there. And, I tweaked my CV. I'd done my research on the company on Goldman Sachs, and I did my research in the division. So usually I kind of broadened the search, and I put out my application. And I think about a week or 2 weeks later, I got an invitation to HireVue. And so I'm super excited. I reached out to my finance professor, the managerial finance. She gave me some feedback, prepped me, told me a couple of things to note. I did more research about the company. I dressed the part. I did my interview on HireVue. I didn't take it for granted. And the next phase with the Goldman Sachs part of it was I was invited to the super day. Obviously, I'm nervous. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I go back to my professor again. She gives me feedback. I reach out to another professor of mine, Professor Tom Barkley, and I tell him about it. And, he's super excited for me. He also gives me pointers on my super day interview. And so one of the things I did that I find noteworthy was I looked at all the content that Goldman Sachs had, especially with that division. Now, as a content writer, right, I can tell a company's personality or culture from their content. You can tell what they're passionate about. And since I like storytelling, so what I thought was, how do I tailor my background and my experience in a way that is easily digestible to this company? What are they looking for? What do I have to offer? And so after doing this, I wrote this down, just a rough draft. And when I presented my background, when I listened to the questions I was told in the interview, one of the things that I felt was noteworthy was my work with high net worth individuals in Nigeria was quite relevant. So if I didn't put in that work to know this is useful for this interview, I don't think I would have scaled through. And so all this preparation got me to be a summer associate in Goldman Sachs in the in the wealth management division. And I say this with so much excitement that I did get a return offer to work with Goldman Sachs. And for me, it shows effort and just tells me, Titi, you've grown, you've learned, and the way I solve problems is different. The way I think. In fact, I remember a feedback my manager gave me during the internship program. He says, Titi, you think 8 steps ahead. And I went back thinking, wow, that's me. And that's something the MBA did in me. It refined that attribute in me. And, wonderful experience just so far.
Excellent. So that brings back, as you were talking about the whole way you were tweaking the resumes and going through the different stages and how you were, it's a process of self-discovery, isn't it? When you're doing your own thing, which we don't think about usually. Usually resumes are thought about as documents that serve a purpose, but no, they serve a lot of different purposes, which are usually not mentioned and they're not quantifiable, right? And you can see the difference in your own growth, which is not really quantifiable because you're not getting a grade for updating your resume, but you're doing it multiple times. And in the process, you're now going into a whole different space with different versions of your resume now that you can pick and choose when you want to highlight certain aspects of your entire experience so far. Anushree had a different type and different approach to the internship experience. So let's hear yours.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing that, TT. I know you're a very strong-willed person, so it worked out for you, and congratulations on that. In my case, I used a lot of resources from Whitman itself. Whitman already has a dedicated career services team, so I would pester them a lot with a lot of resume work that I would need, or any kind of interviews that would come up. I would do mock interviews with them. As I was trying to understand how to crack an interview, they would give me a lot of tips and tricks on how to go about it. So yeah, I completely agree with what TT said. You come in with a certain resume, but you leave with like 25 others before you actually end up getting an internship or a job. So definitely one advice I would give to everyone out there is like, you will absolutely unlearn everything that you did. You think you know, but you will probably unlearn it and relearn it in a different way. And one of the things that the MBA program allowed me was to identify and recognize my strengths and weaknesses. So I realized that my strengths lay in marketing, especially with the advertising background that I would come up, that I came with. So my internship, I did my internship in advertising itself at BBDO New York. While a lot of things were almost the same, the processes were different, the way people approached their work was very different, and that's exactly what I was looking for, especially learning a different set of process and procedures in an international setting. Also, it allowed me to touch upon different genres of brands that I would work with. So I had different categories of brands that I touched upon and learned a lot of responsibilities that included data analysis, it included competitive analysis, it included experiential marketing that I had not touched upon back in India. So it was a great experience. It was very fun, and I'm somebody who likes to be challenged and who looks out for a dynamic environment. So this was perfect in that sense, and went back with a lot of things that I actually learned in the program. So data analysis is a course that we do as a core course in the program by Professor Anna Chernobyl, and her Excel skills are amazing. They're actually out of this world, the way she's organized with everything in Excel. And that's inspiring because I want to be that structured and as organized. And a lot of her skills really helped me in in my data analysis work that I was doing with the internship. At the same time, I also took a core course in marketing management, which was in the first semester of my program itself by Professor Scott Lathrop. that particular course taught me how to approach competition analysis, and a lot of my competitive analysis would be very different and unique compared to the competitive analysis that you would get from the other interns, and that really helped me get more projects and different projects, and I could actually choose projects that I wanted to be part of at VBTO. So I think that was pretty fun and an interesting experience for me.
Great. So through your different approaches to the internship experience, and even both of you met at Whitman, you came from two different areas of the world with completely different experiences. You went through the same curriculum, but listen to yourself. And maybe once this recording is all ready, we should all sit together over a cup of coffee and like listen to it again together and see how much nuanced each of your experiences has been. And that, I think, is the beauty of a small, intimate-sized program, which allows you to learn from each other, but also expand upon what you bring. The other thing I wanted to point out here is through your approaches to the internship experience, one of you went the traditional route, working with the Career Center advisors and using your classwork and class notes to capitalize upon. The other went for the non-traditional approach, which is utilizing faculty as well, because sometimes they get left out. People think they're there only to teach and they cannot offer you any other advice on other aspects. But it's great to see how you were able to bring a utilize both options and utilize the human capital literally at Whitman. Because if the dean was here, he would want to jump in with some of his ideas as well, and he usually does. So that's I think this is a great way to we'll stop here and then we'll open it up to some questions. So let me stop sharing my screen. I know there are some questions here. Lavinia, are you back? Join us, please. There she is.
Yes, of course, I'm here, and we do have several questions, I think both for Anushri and Titi. And before we get to those, of course, I want to encourage all students, if they have any specific questions for the two of them, if they have any questions about the MBA concentrations, or if they have questions about perhaps topics and issues that we have not covered yet. Please feel free to type into the Q&A box and we'll be happy to answer all your questions live. So we have actually a question from Samuel, and he's interested in the MBA. He mentioned he actually was interested in applying. So perhaps we can be in touch regarding that via email with him. But he was wondering, of course, about any opportunities in terms of scholarships or financial aid. So if you'd like, we can cover that now, or perhaps we can leave it.
I can touch upon it briefly. So what I will say is that the Whitman MBA is, does come with a price tag, right? We are a private university. So yes, it does come with a price tag. For some could be a hefty price tag, but then the school is cognizant of the challenges that could pose for folks who are seeking advancement and education. So we do offer merit-based scholarship. It's not a need-based scholarship, it's a merit-based scholarship. So, and of course, with each candidate, it's different. We don't disclose how much scholarship each candidate receives, but then the range is anywhere, because it depends on each individual candidacy, right? So we do not offer full ride scholarships as a general rule, because that's not sustainable if you're looking at a class size of 40 students. But given the funds available, Whitman actually does offer a pretty generous package. And it covers scholarship towards both years of study within the MBA. And so I would suggest that even though sometimes students reach out and request a GMAT or a GRE test waiver, in the long run, it's actually beneficial that they do have a test score, and that will also be taken into account towards their scholarship package. So it's primarily based on merit. So I would say, reach out with specific questions, send me a message later.
Absolutely, Samuel. So you will get all the info, and of course, all the participants who are connected now, they will receive an email with the recording of this event and also with all the information to get in touch with you, Shri. So if you have any specific questions about your, for example, English proficiency requirements or your GMAT scores, or whether you have taken the GMAT or not, please refer to that email and be sure to check your inbox so that you don't miss any important communication from Whitman. So
I've also thrown in the link to the website address. So I would suggest that people go to the new website and look at the graduate section of the website, and then you can look under the full-time MBA. There are details in there. It's a very detailed website with a lot of information about the program specializations and also about the cost of attendance as well.
Perfect. So all the information you need is in the link. So we popped it in the chat for you. And to get to the next questions, and I think this question applies to both Anushri and Titi, a participant is asking why Syracuse and not some other school of management. So what made you choose Syracuse specifically?
And do
you want to go?
Start?
Okay, sure, I can. So like I said, I was doing research. I'd already seen some content from different business school. But for me, what stands out, like when I consider a job or a school, is, does this school or organization care about me? And, while I did inquire to different schools, one of the things that, Shri and the team did differently was, apart from the informational part of it, was to, follow me up and see if I had questions. They cared about me achieving my goals. And this didn't even stop when I came into the program. I was always asked, are you doing okay? Like, have you been able to find an internship? What do you need? And this even extended to the faculty. So I believe I made the right choice because, that's how you learn. I had interaction with different schools, but Whitman followed me up. They cared about me. And for me, that's everything. So apart from the amazing content, like the different concentration, the location, our school is beautiful. So apart from all these different things, I would say it's the human interaction part of it. So
great. Anushri, what about you?
Yeah, for me personally, it was very similar. I remember meeting Shri at one of these virtual MBA tour events and having a conversation about my background, my career goals, and my plans on how I want to achieve it. And this conversation left a lasting impression, especially because I learned more about the program and how it aligned with my aspirations. So the rigorous curriculum, particularly I was able to tailor a lot of this to match my specific career goals. I was able to take concentration starting from the second semester itself, which a lot of other schools did not allow for. And again, coming back to the small class size, I was looking for a more personalized education without actually compromising the quality of the courses. So this combination of having this customization, the individual attention, that really resonated with my learning style and professional ambitions, which is why I chose Syracuse.
Great. So clearly I did something right.
Thank you both so much for the answer. And I do see untypical questions, and actually it's the newest one that came in, but I wanted to ask you about it. So a participant, Praveen, he's asking, as a nuclear engineering professional with 12 years of experience, how typical or atypical is that someone with this profile would join the MBA in their mid-30s?
It's actually not unheard of. In fact, he is the second candidate, I would say, that I have come across in recent times within the last 6 months who has had some interest or exposure to nuclear engineering, right? So it's not unheard of, but it doesn't get talked about as much because I think it's not focused upon as much. So senior experienced candidates at Whitman, I know we have people from a different industry, for instance, 14 years of work experience coming out of the pharma industry, coming to Whitman specifically to address a particular gap in their academic knowledge, if you will, which then also impacts their delivery of practical content, right, in their day-to-day execution. So for instance, the candidate I'm thinking about, actually from Nigeria with 14 years of work experience in pharmacy, comes or wanted to come into the MBA to focus specifically on supply chain, because the goal was to address the gaps in supply chain processes that impact the delivery of medication to patients in times of need, right? So there you're bringing a synergy of how a business discipline, technically considered, traditional business discipline of supply chain management, which of course involves different areas of logistics, inventory, transportation, all of these global operations, what have you. But then you're taking it and addressing how that would benefit a particular industry space, right? So going back to these particular participants' question, it's important when you're coming with a lot of work experience to identify the program that will be able to accommodate that work experience, and also find the synergy and the reciprocity. Because if our goal, and my two panelists here can, negate or correct me if this is not true, but if our goal at Whitman is not just to bring bodies, it's more to create an experience and allow students to go from where they are to where they want to go through this MBA journey. So if a candidate is not clear as to how the program is going to assist them, the program is not going to come and tell you, this is what you should do. They will basically give you the resources and say, what do you want to do, right? So I think it's important to not get fixated about, age, because US education, we do not discriminate based on age. It's open to everybody. Age is not a barrier at all, it's just a number. The years of work experience, the longer you go waiting, that will impact the type of curriculum that is potentially offered. 12 years, I don't see a negative at all to come into Whitman. Happy to have a conversation, so feel free to reach out.
Praveen, you heard it here first, so you will get, of course, all the info to get in touch with Shri. And to move to the next questions, so a participant is asking about, and I assume this is both for Anushri and for Titi as well. How did your career prospect change after the MBA, and did the employers recognize the Whitman name?
I would like to go first.
Again.
So there was this interview I had, and I was sitting with the director, interestingly, and he was like, "Oh, you're from Syracuse." His face lit up, and I was so proud. I was like, "Yeah, Syracuse." So if it's about the Whitman name, definitely it is known. It is known. As to how my prospects change after my education in Whitman, the truth is, aside slapping an MBA behind your name, if you come from a reputable school like Syracuse, like Whitman, one of the things is that the expectation of the value that you're meant to deliver increases. So I'm sitting down with multiple, JD MBAs from all over the country, right? And I'm in a room and I can't have a conversation. And I've had a presentation among other MBAs, and I got amazing feedback. So I'm not saying this because we're on a webinar, but I see the difference in how I communicate and solve problems. Or when the name Whitman is thrown out there, it is recognized. And the truth is, you can do multiple things. I could have gone the marketing route, and I almost did. I could have gone finance. I could have done supply chain, because you do get, you're still going to take supply chain courses as part of the core courses. I took marketing. I had some touch of real estate creating a financial model for that. So there's so many things you could possibly do. It's about what do you want. And like Sri said, you could have 4 different resumes if you want that highlight different things. In fact, I will mention a particular course, I'm sure you can remember, business analytics, where we had multiple skills, multiple tools we learned apart from Excel and R, and every week we had to update our CV to show the different skills we were learning. And these things are important because when you look at a job description, you're seeing different things that think about the person writing the job description. There are boxes that need to be checked. So if you are entering the MBA class knowing what is expected of you in different job description, and your mind is focused on getting that knowledge, your future is however you want to write it. So I think that's all I have to say with regards to how it can impact your career choice.
Absolutely. I think a lot of what Titi said is bang on. The business analytics course was one of a very fun courses I took. And we had projects from different aspects. Like it was 1 week you would do marketing project, 1 week you would analyze supply chain, 1 week you would analyze a financial report, 1 week you would analyze like a medical data set. So it's completely different. It keeps it interesting. It keeps it, wanting to learn more of sorts. With me particularly, I had no touch of supply chain before I joined the MBA program. So when I had the first course in supply chain, that really piqued this interest in me. I was like, okay, I want to learn more about this, especially since we've heard a lot about the supply chain issues that went on because during the pandemic, something as small as tissue papers were out of stock, really. So, a lot of these things really started me thinking, I'm like, okay, how do I get to where I want to get to? And especially in a brand management role, you want to know what's happening in the front end and the back end. So supply chain was more on the back end of it. And I wanted to learn more about it. And I was able to shift towards supply chain as well. And in terms of Whitman being known, definitely Whitman has a great alumni base and they're always ready there to help you out. And if you reach out to them, so if anyone wants to reach out to us, we're happy to help too. So I think utilizing that alumni plus Syracuse is already recognized because they have had good ranking, consistently ranked very well in the US News as well, which is one of the important websites that students look for when they decide to do an MBA or when they decide to come abroad to study. So definitely Syracuse has a name with the employers and with the alumni connections in different top positions within these companies. It also creates a different impact.
Thank you both so much. And to stay on the topic of connections, a participant is asking about networking events. Did you have perhaps any chance to attend any? And if yes, how did that go?
I can take this on first. So the Whitman organizes coffee chats where they invite all these alumni at senior positions to come look at your resumes or just have a chat with them on your career aspirations and how they can help in that particular section of things. So I've had an opportunity to meet brand managers and vice presidents from different companies and understand what my options look like after I graduate and where I really want to be. So that was one of the best things that Whitman provided on campus itself. And the second thing was I also had chances to go to a lot of events outside of the university events. So I had a chance to go to ProductCon in NYC, and Whitman Whitman grad office was able to pay for my visit there as well. So the staff definitely provides support wherever is required. And we have student associations and clubs who also give these travel grants in case this event is really important to you. So some of the students I know have also flown across the country to attend different events. So networking opportunities are plenty. It's all a matter of having the timing and having the the opportunity to actually make use of that those opportunities that are available.
Great news. DC, please.
Oh, yes. So I'm a National Black MBA scholar. So one of the things you have access to are tons and tons and tons of opportunities. In fact, I would say that every 3 weeks in the last 2 years. There are different things I could have gone for. I did go for about 4 or 5. Some were virtual. My friend actually went for the one in person, which was amazing. The feedback I got from her was amazing. So you have access to, listening to multiple businesses. And so for me, when I was interested in finance, so I was mostly paying attention to the different networking opportunities for finance companies, seeing the things that were needed there. Another thing is, to be honest, I would have been in Seoul right now, but for the time it was a bit off for me. I wouldn't be here because there was a course and a networking opportunity that would have happened as well. So there's just so many. It depends on what route you want to go, what industry you're looking at. Like Anushri said, like there was one where you went to San Francisco. There's just so many things. Like, so, if there was one where you could, meet different entrepreneurs, like as many as you want to do, really. So if you narrow it down to the field you want to go into, it's always something to accommodate whatever networking opportunity you're looking for. So that's it.
And I have to interject here and say that if this webinar is going to be watched by any alumni who graduated 4 years ago, they are going to want to come back for the MBA because they did not have the same opportunities. So the beauty of this is that as a small school, you get to constantly innovate. And that's something that Whitman has been doing. And it is great to see for someone like me who's been at Whitman for quite a while, how the evolutions have come across and how students have taken advantage of those different innovations and how they've capitalized on it to take their own journeys forward. So a couple of things that both of you refer to here. What T was referring to, the opportunity in San Francisco, is something which is a recent innovation. That was our first attempt at bringing students from the undergrad, full-time and online programs as a cohort of 40 students to meet with corporate recruiters in Silicon Valley. So they had opportunities to meet with corporate recruiters and HR personnel at companies like LinkedIn, Tesla, Facebook, Amazon. So we're trying to build that pathway now because business analytics is reaching into different spaces. We are not just a New York school. We are, of course, a New York State school, but with our Orange family all over the world and the globe, we want to build upon those connections. And each of the companies that I've mentioned, we have Whitman alumni in there who facilitated this meeting to happen. The other thing that I think Anushri touched upon with various opportunities for different types of grants and scholarships is the Whitman Industry Readiness and Excellence Initiative, which allows students to, for instance, it's not a travel grant, it's more a scholarship opportunity for earning your certification. So let's say you want to earn a particular certification and it's going to cost you, you can apply for this grant and Whitman pays for it. And you can go take the exam, prepare, and then show us that you earned the certification, right? So it prepares you to become industry ready before you graduate. And this is in addition to other things about the aspects which Whitman does offer, which are not necessarily, all that we can cover in 1 hour PowerPoint or a webinar, but little things that, they pop up in different experiences. Yep.
Sure. And to that topic, a participant is asking if there are any startup factories within Syracuse.
Yes.
Okay, analysts.
Yes, there's definitely opportunities to start your own business. There is a university-wide thing called Blackstone Launchpad, which works with students who are looking for opportunities to start their own things in different ways. It could be as small as opening a cookie store to as big as launching their own LLC, maybe. So definitely opportunities are there to start your own startups.
And even starting with Whitman, even starting at Whitman with your own student incubator center, right?
Yeah. Yes.
We actually had like joint classes with people from the engineering background in some of the strategy classes we took. And I remember in the course of 2 years, there were about 3 people that had won multiple grants from both Whitman and generally the whole school. I mean, 20, 15, 50,000. So there are always opportunities for people that are, more into entrepreneurship than, going into the industry. So that Whitman is very supportive, and Syracuse as a whole.
Thank you all for the answer. One final question before we wrap this up. So both Titi and Anushri, I was wondering if you ever had to resit an exam, or if any of your colleagues had to resit one, and if yes, how did that go? Is it even possible to do so?
I think it depends on the professor in terms of resitting an exam, but I've not seen anybody do that because the course is so well structured that you have the professor. So each professor has their own methodology on how they approach the course, etc. So certain professors they have just an end project that we have to do as a final exam per se, but when it comes to resitting an exam, it depends on how the professor takes it. But I haven't seen anyone do that really, because the course is very well structured that students gain the skills and the technical expertise that they require to sit for the exam. Yeah.
I would say that I'm not sure it's possible because, most of the courses I took, like I said, I was moving from marketing to finance. There were so many things I had to learn, so I never did. But I know that every 2 or 3 weeks, like even in the market research course that Anushri mentioned, you were evaluated almost every week or every 2 weeks, maybe 10 or 15 different assignments in the whole the course of the semester. A midterm, there were so many things for you to do to catch up. So if by middle of the semester you lost all those different points, I mean, that would just be incredible. But I remember there was a time, people had to be, evaluated before they could drop the course. Like, are you sure you can take this course based on, all the different opportunities you've had to get grades, to get good grades? You feel so you're going to have to sit with the professor and say, what is the problem? So we had this thing called reflection questions, where every week we, wrote it's a finance course, but we wrote our ambition, what was driving us. So, one of the things I remember was, as I wrote down maybe why I wasn't doing my best, what were the hindrances, I was able to reflect on what I could do better. And I eventually got an A in the course because you have these opportunities. So the chances of you resitting an exam are very slim if you make use of all these resources.
I want to add the staff perspective to this. As an MBA student, let me be very clear. The expectation is that you're never, ever going to go for a C grade. That's not allowed. So the program is rigorous, and it is structured in such a way with multiple assignments that have a point structure, which might be different from each faculty member's rubric, but participation counts in general. Not attending class will ding you points, so which means you will get downgraded. You have to participate as part of a group in your collaborative projects. That counts. Your individual performance also counts. Now, having said all this, every student does work with an academic advisor. And before the semester begins, you are expected to have a meeting with the academic advisor. Students sometimes think that once the staff brings you in, they don't pay attention to what's happening. But little do they know, we talk to each other. And I, for one, like to always be on the pulse of what my students are doing. Not because I'm nosy, but I want to know that they're doing okay, not just academically, but they're doing okay mentally, right? Mental health is important. You're away from home, you're away from all your familiar support structures and systems. So we want to know that none of that is causing a problem in you performing academically, right, at your best. And so if there is a way for us to intervene and offer some suggestions and recommendations, direct you somewhere, then we can do that. Or sometimes just come and have a cup of coffee with us, or just come in and have a chat. I know both of my students here have access to me on WhatsApp, and they have utilized it. So it's more of, there is a requirement in terms of policy that you cannot fall below a 3.0 GPA, and therefore usually you do not see people with a C grade within the MBA, because you have to maintain that high standard. It also impacts you, especially if you're international. It impacts you with your visa status. It also impacts you with your scholarship, right? So at any point in the semester, if the GPA is falling, you get a call into the academic advisor's office. If you're being called and you're not actually making that appointment voluntarily, it's not a good sign. So there are structures in place to sort of ensure that that doesn't happen.
Great. So just as a little heads up for any participants interested in applying, you will not be allowed to fail, bottom line. So that's great news. And unfortunately, the time for this event has come to an end, but I do want to thank both MBA alumni for their time today and for the precious testimonials they have given and all the insight that they offered. Of course, Shri, thank you as well. It was great having you once again. And yeah, thank you all so much for just giving us the time of your day to take all the questions.
It was great. As always with Docsity, looking forward to another collaboration. And this has been fantastic. I was glad to have my two alumni join me today. One was traveling, so she's sitting in a hotel room, Anushri. The other one traveled and then a day ahead. And so Titi is in Texas visiting family now before she starts her work journey. But this has given me an idea. Maybe we should do another session like this with our incoming cohort. So thank you very much, and great to see everybody.
Thank you to everyone, to all the participants, and of course, keep an eye out for your email inbox. You will get the recording of the event and of course all the info to get in touch with Shri here. And if you wish to request your certificate of attendance by Docsity, just write an email to webinar@docsity.com specifying which event you are writing for, and we'll be happy to give you your certificate. So once again, thank you all so much, and stay safe, and see you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.